Greetings, my name is Dr. B. Elizabeth Short-Clark, and I'm your host for Real Issues. We deal with such issues as trauma, divorce, loneliness. I welcome you to be a part of this show.
Now let me tell you what Webster says about loneliness. And I want to get this correct. Webster defines loneliness as solitude, seclusion, and a state of not being interactive with any human being. That's what Webster says. But Dr. Liz, that brings me to you. What do you say about loneliness?
Loneliness is very real. Let me just say that. My definition of loneliness is what I perceive in my mind to be true. If my mind tells me that no one loves me, that I'm alone, then I'm going to believe that. Our minds are these unique mechanisms that God has blessed us with. And what we think and what we do is amazing. So if my mind tells me I'm unloved, I'm going to believe that I am unloved. If my mind tells me, whether it's true or not, it's what I perceive, it's my thoughts, these are my thoughts. So if my mind tells me I'm unloved, I'm going to believe that I'm unloved, and I'm going to proceed accordingly. It doesn't have to be true. So if I think I'm unloved, Minister Shaw, then I am going to proceed as such. So if I come into a group of people, and while I'm in that group of people, one person doesn't smile at me, or one person decides not to speak to me, and I say, hi, I come in, I'm all open, and I say hi. And that one person turns away because I have built up something in my mind that I'm unloved. Everybody else in the room can say hello, but that one person who does not say hello is going to make me think I'm inferior. There's something wrong with me. Oh my God, what is it? What is it? So if I believe that I'm unloved, and I'm going to feel that way, and I'm going to act accordingly.
Wow. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah, I think we all can.
It's real. Loneliness is such a powerful topic that in the UK, there is what's called a minister of loneliness. That's just how real this thing is. Because loneliness can lead us in so many different directions. It could lead us oftentimes in the bed of an address that we're not familiar with, if you know what I'm talking about. Loneliness can do that. One little act of kindness we can embrace and just think, okay, I don't want to be lonely tonight. And I think there was a song. And we'll find ourselves with a complete stranger trying to fulfill that need and I come to you from a Christian perspective. So that means God has to fulfill that wantonness that's on the inside of me. And if I never get it dealt with, I will be in a relationship with someone out of loneliness. And that is not what we want to do. Absolutely not.
Well, it wouldn't work. That would be the thing. And we would find ourselves probably even more depressed.
Even more depressed. Just to find yourself waking up with someone that you don't have any emotional ties to. You just wanted to be comforted that night. And what will that do to you? And many people find themselves, this is very real, and it's very real in the church. And until we stand up and start addressing these matters, it's going to continue.
Absolutely.
It will continue.
So, from a physical standpoint, how does loneliness affect us? Being our wallet, our job, our health, family, how does loneliness affect us?
Wow. Oh, one of the things, just think our wallets. If I'm lonely, I'm going to do something to counteract that loneliness. And one of the things, I used to have this little plaque, and it says, when the going gets tough, the toughs go shopping. The tough go shopping. And so if the going gets tough, to relieve myself and to bring myself some peace and some temporary joy, you go shopping. Now, if you are a shopaholic and you find yourself shopping and you just blow your budget, that's going to get you in trouble financially. It's just crazy, but we do it. We do it.
Oh, yeah, we do.
And then say after it's all over, unga, what have I done? What have I done? But that's one of the things.
Absolutely.
And physically, we can find ourselves just becoming, just overwhelmed, and which loneliness can lead to depression. It's very serious, but we can put ourselves in some situations. We ourselves can. We don't blame anybody else. It's about what we're doing.
Make us not want to get out of bed and go to work.
Absolutely.
It can make us feel spirit of heaviness, and it's like, I don't want to eat, I don't want to go to work, I don't want to do anything.
Exactly. And all from loneliness. Not everybody would equate that with loneliness, but it's so many factors.
It affects our health as well.
Absolutely.
Make us have aches and pains that we may not necessarily have.
Physically, as well as they said, from research, it can cause the early onset of Alzheimer's. These are powerful things, so just based on that alone, I don't want to be lonely. I don't want to find myself lonely, not at all. Not at all.
Well, from an emotional standpoint, Dr. Clark, you had mentioned in a previous taping that we did about the loss of your husband.
Yes.
And so my question to you, does loneliness hurt? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Loneliness, as I just mentioned, is very real. And when my husband passed, I had an opportunity, as I have said before, to get to know myself a little better. And it was a time of loneliness because you're talking to somebody on a daily basis. His presence is there. Even if you're not talking, the person's presence is there. So you can come in a room and you just automatically know he's there and it's okay. And there are moments, I have my moments, but I am not a very nostalgic person. I'm a person who lives in the present, who looks forward to the future. That's who I am. And I used to say to him, my husband was nostalgic. He could remember things from way back, and I'm like, how do you do that? I don't have that type of mind. My mind goes to the present and on to the future. So I don't linger. Had I lingered, let me share this with you. I heard Andrew Womack say once, he said, when we hold on to grief and things of that nature, we're selfish. And I said, listen to what this guy is saying. He said, yeah, when you insist upon being hurt, you're selfish because that is an emotion that you want to hold on to and it's feeding something in you. And I never forgot that. So I said, you know what? My husband always said, live life to the fullest. He said, whenever you have an opportunity to laugh, laugh. Because life is going to bring you enough problems where you won't have an opportunity to laugh. So I forgot that and I embraced that. He said, you can choose, you can make a choice, and I fully embraced that, to live life to the fullest and have joy, or you can just be depressed and stay where you are. I choose to have joy. So I purposely, to answer your question, I purposely made up my mind. There's a whole world out there that I have not discovered. I said in a previous show, I didn't necessarily know what my favorite color was until, because I had many. And I was like, no, fine tune it. Choose one. So I choose, green is my favorite color. So I choose the color green. I don't know if I would have ever taken the time to just stop and figure out, choose one color. Yeah, you don't want the whole rainbow, even though they're beautiful. Choose one. So I chose one. And I started doing things for myself to improve me. I enrolled in a class. I'm a reader, I'm a studier, I love meeting people. Even though I am an introvert, I have decided that I want to meet new people, I want to travel. There's so much more that I want to do, and just knowing and acknowledging those things has helped tremendously. So I'm not a person who lives in the past. I got to get up and keep moving, because I don't know when my knock is coming on the door to say, come on home. But I'm the type of person that said I done made an agreement with God that I will not die until we sit down and have a chat and I decide I'm ready to go. So you see, I have a lot of living to do.
Awesome. I need to make that agreement too.
Absolutely, we can do it. We can do that.
Okay, so loneliness affects real people, and we're real people.
Yeah.
So why are we by ourselves? And where is our mate?
That's a good question. There is in the scientific world a law that's called the law of attraction. And in the Bible, it's simply reaping and sowing. The Bible says, if you want a friend, you must first show yourself friendly. I can't expect to find a mate or companion if I am rude, ugly, ornery. When I say ugly, I mean ugly acting or behaving, honoring. Whatever I put out, that's what I'm going to get back. And scientists has proven this to be true. So whatever we put out, that's what we get back. Are we prepared? Are we willing to cross over and start dating someone of a different race, a different culture? Are we willing to do that? Again, we attract what we are. And people be saying, oh, every guy I meet, he's a loser. Oh, baby, there's something you giving up that's attracting the loser. Or it could be the same thing with a man. She could look like this, but every time I find myself in a relationship, I find myself with a woman who cheats or lies or whatever. Well, there is something that you are putting out in the atmosphere, in the universe, whatever, and that's coming back. You put out what we reap, what we sow. What are you sowing? If you sow insecurity, you're going to get an insecure person back. If you sow confidence, confidence will come. Now, the question have to be, how much time do you have to invest in that person that you're interested in to bring them to where your standards are? Only you can answer that. Are you willing to put 25 years in and you're 55? Not me. No, I don't have that kind of time to invest in an individual. It's like, no, there's some things are given that should come with the package. Come on. At this stage of the game, none of us are children. Even if you're 30, if you're 30 years old, you should have a good idea or a reasonable idea of who you are and the things that you want in this life. So you should write it down, document it, and then Bishop T.J. said the 80-20 rule. If you're willing to work with the 80-20, if 80% looks good, then maybe, everybody is different. Everyone is different. One of the things I talked about was being prepared financially, being prepared spiritually. Because here's a problem, and I think in the Christian world, this is what people believe. People believe, oh, this person is saved, so we can get together because we're both saved. We love the Lord, and everything will just work out fine. Well, that's a misnomer. You can be both saved. I met someone recently who said, I love God. I'm saved to the utmost. I don't want to be married because I don't want to share. And she said, and I'm still saved. And I said, yes, you are. And that is your privilege, that's your right. But if you're going to be married, one of the things that you must look at is that you're going to have to share. You're going to have to be willing to share, and back to the female again, you're going to have to share. But you must understand it will no longer be about you. So if you're enjoying single life for a long period of time, you really need to think about it before you jump into marriage, because it's not going to be about you anymore. She said, you know what, I love going home, I love going out, I love not reporting to someone. These are things that will change once you say I do. And let me tell you, everything we do once we're married gets magnified. Why? It gets magnified for this simple reason. The enemy hates marriage. Marriage is an institution that God ordained. So the enemy hates it. And he works very decisively, and he works overtime trying to destroy marriages. So it could be something as simple as leaving a toilet seat up. Well, you know, your husband may say, if she leaves that toilet seat up, or put it down one more time, I think I'm going to scream. And that seems just trivial, right? But it could cause a major problem. Or here's one I used to do, and I hated it when it happened to me, was not fill the car. I'm going to get the car home empty. My husband would be like, what is your problem? Didn't you pass the gas station on the way home? I said, yeah, I did. I didn't feel like stopping to put gas in it. You do it. No, you know I should know better than that. Little things like that could cause a problem. Yes, that's why I live in Jersey, where you just pull up and they pump it. I love it. I'll stay in Jersey for that reason alone. I love it. They still do it in Jersey. I love it. I'm just like, that's why I always gas up over there, because I can't stand, having to get out and go through all that. So they spoil you just a little bit. That is a sad commentary, but we know that is true. For the simple fact that you can be around people and you can be in the midst of people, but going through your own private hell. There was a recent article in O magazine, and it said suffering in silence. And it touched on the fact that we can be surrounded by so many people and yet find ourselves alone. That's like the child who grows up in a large family. Like I grew up in a large family. But one of my brothers, he went home to be with the Lord. He never connected with the rest of the family. I don't know why. We grew up in the same house, but there was something about him that felt different. Then there was another brother who purposely separated himself. And there was an age difference, so I just chalked it up for being age. He was a little older. He was the only child. He loved it, and he wanted to be by himself most of the time, and he did. But again, we can be surrounded by so many people and living in our own private hell, if you will. If I decide, remember what I said about the mind? If I decide in my mind that I am less than you or you or you, I can come up and create a whole scenario in my mind that's not true. And one of the things that I've discovered is that, especially among African American people, there are so many mental health issues that we never deal with. And the enemy preys on that. Depression is an area that's clinically diagnosed. It's a clinical diagnoses for depression. And if we never deal with depression, we'll just accept it as the norm. And oftentimes, if I'm not understood by somebody that I deem worthy, special, or I put them up as somebody great in my life, and if for some reason I get rejected by that person, and it oftentimes starts when we're children, this one person that you want to receive love from rejects you, well, then you're going to come up with a ton of reasons. The enemy is going to just pump your mind and say, you see, that person doesn't like you because you're this. I told you, didn't I tell you that? You're this way and you're that way, and nobody likes you. So he's going to feed you with all that little impish lies, because that's what the enemy does, and you will find yourself believing it. So we have to just recognize we will never be healed from anything, ever, unless we first recognize that we have an issue. And this is what we do. This show is about real issues. But if we never acknowledge the fact, you know what? I got a problem. One of the things my late husband did, he used to make me, if you will, when I say make, not force, but he would say things like, do you really think you needed to do that? Whatever. You know, what are you saying? But he would say things to me. He would just challenge me. But he challenged me in such a way. He would say, you reacted really strongly about that. Are you sure you were right when you did that? And I'd be like, what are you saying? Because I really then wanted to get to the root of the matter and say, what exactly is he saying to me? And he said this. He said, you have to be honest with yourself about yourself. And let me tell you the reason why he was so honest and so very definitive in that area. Because when he was in the world, he was not. He used to lie. He used to do things that were underhanded. He was a hustler at one point in his life. And so he said, even in that, he said, you have to be real. He said, I lied for a living. He said, I could tell lies, and it was major. So when I came in out of the world and from the world, I didn't want to be that person anymore. So I always told the truth. As you know, Shakespeare has said, to thine own self be true, or it must follow us day and night. You know, we've got to be true to ourselves. So you first must recognize, I have a problem. I'm lonely. You know, why? If you want to do a self-examination, you can say, why am I lonely? And you might hear, because I don't feel good about myself. And then here's the thing that's amazing. You can be in a key position in life, in church, in your career, and not feel good about yourself. You could be like, you know, that's why people commit suicide all the time. It's like the world is telling me I'm great, but in my heart, I feel so insignificant. I feel insignificant, and then when you just got to trace it all back, go all the way back to your childhood, and I guarantee you will find a time when somebody made you feel insignificant, and you carried this thing through life, and you believe the lie, and so you just embrace it. You know, I'm not good enough. I can't. I won't. I was never the favorite child. I was never this. You will find the enemy will make certain that he pumps your mind up with negativity until you never come into the knowledge of truth. But thank God for Jesus. That's why he tells us to be born again. To be born again means to leave that old man, that old nature, that old mindset behind and embrace the new one that says, you know what? I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. Or the mindset that says, you know what? I'm accepted in the beloved. So whether you accept me or not, I'm okay. And here's a tool that you can use, especially if you are sensitive. And even the strongest person can find themselves sensitive at one time or another. Here's what you can do. Like when you come into a place for the first time, just say, good morning, hi, how are you? Never expect a response back. Doesn't matter if the person responds to you or not, you just say hello. And if you practice that over time, so if you find yourself in a situation similar, you say hello and no one says a word. But some cultures don't. You can say hello and they won't open their mouth and speak back to you at all. They don't. That's just who they are. That's okay. You shouldn't be so hurt and offended. So if you practice, you know what, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to greet this person. I'm going to say hello. I'm going to make this thing work because I feel good about me, whether they feel good about me or not. That I think is crucial. The color of loneliness. Well, loneliness doesn't have a color. Anybody, white, black, yellow, green, can find themselves in a position of loneliness. And what happened with Moses was a racial thing. His sister, his brother, they were upset because he married I believe, a woman, an African woman, and they were upset about it. And they spoke against the man of God, and then we know what happened. God cursed them with leprosy, and, they pleaded, Moses interceded on their behalf, and God, it was Miriam who had leprosy, and he cleansed her of her leprosy. There's no color in loneliness. Anyone can be lonely. There's no color in love. If, I say again, if you decide to marry someone of a different race, just be prepared. We talked a little bit about that in our previous series. Be prepared for what comes with that. We live in the United States of America. We're in a time where racism is pushed. And it's not the majority as the media would have us to believe it is, but it's real. It's very real. I knew a guy that was interested in me that he was a Caucasian guy, but he didn't necessarily like black people. Now, how's that gonna work? You want to date me, but you don't like black people. Well, you're crazy. How's it gonna work? So it's okay in his mind, because he felt that, I was a good person, I was somebody he was interested in, but he wasn't willing to embrace other people in my ethnic group. So that's just off. So you have to be willing to go through the rolling of the eyes, not being spoken to be walked by or discounted as if you're nothing. So if you can handle that, then I'll say, step on over and find somebody out of your race, that's fine. But many of the sisters that I talk to, from a Christian counseling perspective, they say, you know what, I don't want to go outside of my race. I want to marry somebody within my race. And I say to you, I promise you, if you prepare yourself, God will bless you with a husband. You have to prepare yourself. Then all you have to do is, because see, I believe the Bible that says you can speak to any mountain and that mountain shall be removed. Because I'm seeing God answer prayers that are phenomenal. I mean, he moves. So when I pray, I don't just pray to exercise my voice. I pray knowing that God is going to answer my prayer. I know it. And I spoke to you a little earlier about what the scientists are discovering. Scientists are discovering, and I find this amazing, faith. They're documenting faith as something, this is what they say, something happens in the brain waves when we believe that we're going to get what we pray for or what we're asking for before we get it. And I thought to myself, well, it took you a long time to get there, but what you're saying is have faith in God, and God will answer your prayer. He will. God loves us. And I think love is the strongest emotion, but it is the most difficult emotion to get across to people. Why? Because of the mindset, because we've been beat up and beat down so often until we don't know what love is, and we certainly will not embrace it. So we have to change our minds. It's crucial, crucial. But one of the responsibilities is we as the church must be sensitive. Now, it's easy to reach out to people if your church is small. But if you have a mega church, it's more challenging, because many people come to mega churches to hide. They just want to come in, get the word, sit in on praise and worship. They can run in and run out, and they don't really have to be attached in any way. So it is imperative that the church, the body of Christ, be sensitive. And just, scientists say we are made up of pure energy. Have you ever been around someone and you just said, and after you left that person's presence, you felt drained? So if you are around someone, ask God to tweak your sense of discernment, where you can feel the loneliness that's coming from someone. Or you can discern, you know what, even though that person may be smiling, I know she's hurting, or I know he's hurting. And you reach out. So it is the church's responsibility, in answer to that question, to be sensitive and to move with the flow of the Spirit of God into a place whereby you can come into a presence, or you can see that person's countenance have changed. And if it's to an extreme, something has taken place. Whether it's overjoyed, ever seen a person, everything, they just overjoyed about everything, but you know it's not real, and it's a camouflage, it's a mask that they're wearing, or you see them sad, and that person is normally a jovial person. Then you want to say, you know what, something's wrong. Let me just go and say hello and greet that person and see if everything is okay. I remember the first time, not the first time, I had my car when I was 16 years old. I bought my first car. I didn't want my father or anybody to buy it for me, because I was like, then you can tell me what to do with it. Who to put in and who not to. So I saved my money, and I said, no, I want to buy my own. I always wanted my own. So I got my own, and I said, you know what? This is my car. I can drive it. I can do whatever I want. But you know what? My father said, I want you to go and do so-and-so and such and such. And I said, okay, I will. So I said that to say this. Whatever we have, God has blessed us with. It is not ours to close our fists and to shut down. We must share. It's not about us. It's me, mine. No, it's about the family of God. It's about those who don't have anybody. Go to the nursing home. Go to the prisons. Go to your neighbor. Just share. Invite somebody to dinner. My neighbor, where I live now, I was concerned. What happened was, something happened and she needed some help. Someone knocked on my door by mistake and said, I'm so-and-so, and your neighbor across the street needs so-and-so and such and such. So what I did was, I went over and I knocked on the door. I said, I'm your neighbor across the street. Well, she knew who I was. I'd introduced myself earlier. And I said, this person left this card. But what I'm going to do, if you need help, I'm going to go, and I made the phone call for her, got her some help, and the problem was worked out. Now, she could have told me, you can mind your own business, but she's a senior, and I said, you know what, I'm going to help her. So I took the initiative, and I helped her, and it was a blessing. And she said, thank you so much. I got it all worked out. So we have to take that extra step sometimes, run the risk of being rejected, and help somebody, invite somebody to dinner. It's important. That's brotherly love. Oftentimes we put on a face. We try, in some instances, to make others happy when we ourselves are going through our own personal hell, if you will. And it's faking it, you know. There's an expression in the world, fake it till you make it. I'm not faking anything. I'm going to grab a hold of the Word of God that says I can do all things through Christ, and I can be whoever God has created me to be. But oftentimes, because along those lines, there are many pastors who have committed suicide. And you have to say, why? Why is it that pastors, the ones who God has called, they're anointed, and for whatever reasons, they check out? Well, there are many reasons for that. And one of them, it could be a clinical diagnosis and they never got treated for. It could be the fact that they just are so depressed after listening to everybody else's problems. They're like, now who's going to help me?
That's right.
And I think Bishop T. Jakes wrote a book called When Shepherds Bleed.
Yes.
It was a tremendous book. But what happens to the person that, and there are people, and at one point in my life, I think I was among that group, especially in my family. It was like I took on so much, and I was like acting a bit of like a parent. Oh, and you know, teaching my younger siblings, make sure you do this, make sure you do that, you do this, you do that. Well, that wasn't my responsibility. I just took that on because I felt they needed some help. I don't know. But my parents were quite capable of doing the job. But what happens is when I become such a people pleaser that I want to make everybody else happy, you're gonna suffer behind that. I cannot make everybody happy. I can't make people like me who don't like me. That's just the way it is. I can only do my part. And if my part is saying, you know what, brothers and sisters, you can do better, then I've done my part. If my part is going to visit someone in a nursing home, I've done my part, because Jesus said, if you've done this to the least of my brethren, you've done it unto me. But when I stand up and I try to become all things to all people, and I just burn out, because that's what will happen. And faking it will never get you to where you need to be. Be honest with yourself and just say, you know what, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. I need a break. And oftentimes we don't do that. You know, many people take vacations. Some people never take vacations. And that's a must-needed rest. We've just got to say, you know what, I'm tired. Leave me alone. You know, but that faking it, and that's what happened. He faked it because, you know, he tried to be everything. We can never be everything to anybody. I can only give what God has placed in me to give to anybody. But when I think that I'm a superwoman and I can just do all this, you know, whether it's for my spouse, for whoever, I can't do everything. I'm not God. I'm like him. I can do a lot, but you know, he is the Almighty. So I'm not going to stand up and fake because I'm too old. It's too late in the game. You know, I'm not 20. I am not going to pretend with anybody about anything. I'm going to be very forward. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you how I feel, especially if you ask me. You know, I'm going to be honest. And that's where I think it comes down to, Charlotte, that person was not being honest. He was crying on the inside. He was crushed. You know, or any clown is. They out performing, trying to make everybody else happy. And if you take note, please notice, most people that are very comedic are in a lot of pain. They have learned that it's easier to be funny than to embrace the pain. One of my brothers, he could be so humorous, but he was in a lot of pain. Pain from the war, for being in the military. And I would watch him, and I was like, and he could be a riot. He would have everybody just cracking up. I mean, we'd be just falling out. But he was suffering on the inside. And that's what he used as a method to mask his pain. And finally, you know, he began to work it out. He went home to be with, he had an aneurysm, and he went home to be with the Lord. But he struggled. He struggled for a long time. But he was the life of the party. He was the one that made everybody else feel good, while he himself was struggling on the inside. So we need to just be aware. We are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's keeper. And I think sensitivity is paramount, because we're in a season now where when you go to the mall, you're going to see people coupled up. Everybody's laughing and everybody looks like they're so happy, and you come and you say, here I am another year by myself, you know, and it's like no gift under the tree, no tree, as you had mentioned previously. What am I going to do? Now here are your choices. You can have a pity party and feel sorry for yourself. Or you can go, you know, I was out at the store the other day, and I like this brand of chocolates. So I went in the store and I said, you know what? I'm going to buy me some of those chocolates. So I went in there and I bought me a box of chocolates, and I put them right under my tree, because my tree is up. And I said, I'm happy about that. Buy your own gift. Put your tree up. Be happy. Put on some Christmas music, and you and the Lord just dance all around your house. Even if you're married, just still do it. You know, we make a choice. We choose. And remember, I don't know if I shared with you or not, but we make a choice. Happiness is a choice. And if you change your thoughts, you change your life. I choose to be happy, or I choose to be sad. It's a choice. Nobody else really can do that. You are the one who determine whether or not you want to be happy or sad. So when I get up in the morning, what helps is that, Lord, I thank you that the sun is shining bright today. Thank you. And when we begin to be grateful about what we have and how God has blessed us, we will just shake off. Remember, you cannot praise God and be sad at the same time. One thing got to break. But I make a conscious decision that, you know what, I may be by myself figuratively, but guess what? Jesus is with me, and then I got a whole bunch of people I can contact. I can call up my sister, I can call you up. I can say, you know what, can we do something over the holiday? And you just say, oh no, I'm busy. That's okay, call somebody else up. The solution is, we don't have to be lonely unless we want to. Unless there is a diagnosis that chemically there's something going on in your brain, then you may need, again, medication, therapy, things of that nature to help walk you through it. But even in that, grab somebody and invite them over for this holiday season. And remember, all those people smiling at the mall, you don't know what they're smiling about. You don't know if the smile is fake or phony. You don't know. You know? They could be happy about the fact that they just got something on sale. You don't know, but it looks like things always look greener on the other side. You don't know. You don't know. Smile, number one. Thank God for being alive. Then, you know, if you just want to be around people, I was an only girl in my family, so I can take people or leave people. Because I had to make it by myself in a whole household of males. So I learned, I'd take my dolls and we would travel around the world. So I love people, I love being around them, but I could be by myself. And I'm not lonely. I'm okay with being by myself. I'm gonna get a book, I'm gonna get in a corner, and I'm gonna be happy. So there's things that we can do. Pal up with someone, call somebody up. I spoke earlier about early childhood experiences. Many times they are traumatic in our life, and it will shape us. So there are definitely phases because we learn. You know what I love about the human body and the mind? It will heal itself if we will allow it to. The person that's been traumatized will find a way of escape to cope with the trauma. So it may be buried in the back of their mind, but it's that, you know, they do something, they have to in order to make the adjustment. So oftentimes comedy, again, that is so profound because I've watched it up close and personal, and you see the tears of a clown over and over again. But we know now that things that we didn't know before. God, I am accepted in the beloved. It doesn't matter if I'm blue, black, if I'm pale as a ghost, it doesn't matter. Jesus Christ accepts me for who I am. And I think that is crucial because we can escape and we can just beat ourselves up. When I look at where we are today and the definition of beauty with our young people, it just breaks my heart. Where people are dying because they're going to these so-called plastic surgeons and having things done to their bodies and they're dying or they're becoming disfigured, all because of social media and what's being, it's just propaganda of what we should look like, how we should dress and things of that nature. We need to stop and we need to get back to the Bible. Amen. As we begin to wrap up, were there any other questions? Because we're going to get ready to end this session. It's been a pleasure. Just thank God. There's so much more that we're going to talk about in the future. But again, loneliness is very real, but you don't have to be by yourself. So we're going to make an effort, a serious effort to reach out to someone.
I want to thank you for being a part of this show. I want to give a shout out to Pastor Richard Cherry Martin, who has afforded me this platform. And remember, real issues are coming your way.